Florence and Wilfred by Sally Sheringham. Florence was an elderly fairy. She lived in a snug little cottage with her best friend, a marmalade cat called Wilfred. Florence was very happy on the whole, except every now and then she longed to be young and beautiful again.
"But I like you just the way you are,"
Wilfred would say, and Florence would reply that a cat, and a male cat at that, couldn't possibly understand how she felt. For Florence's 195th birthday, Wilfred gave her a pair of warm, sensual slippers. "It's very kind of you, Wilfred, dear," sighed Florence, "but these slippers make me feel even older." Then Florence suddenly had a brilliant idea. "I know," she exclaimed. "I'll give myself a birthday present. I'll use my magic to become young and beautiful again." "Don't you think that's a brilliant idea, Wilfred?" said Wilfred.
"I think it's a very
Brilliant idea, if you ask me." And he stalked off with his nose in the air. The young and beautiful spell turned out to be very complicated, and Florence missed having Wilfred to help her. She had to find unpleasant ingredients like slugs, bugs, and other slimy things too nasty to mention. At last, everything was assembled in a saucepan. She waved her magic wand. There was a bright blue flash, and the concoction started to boil and smoke. When it cooled down, she poured the potion into a silver goblet and drank it. It tasted as revolting as it looked. "I suppose even fairies have to suffer to be beautiful," Florence sighed, pulling a face. Then she went upstairs, stood in front of the mirror and waited. She felt rather nervous. Suddenly the magic started. Her straight white hair turned jet black and started to curl. Her wrinkled cheeks and crumpled wings turned as smooth as if they'd just been ironed. Her plump, cuddly body turned sleek and curvy. Wilfred, who had heard all the fizzing and wheezing from the garden, watched disapprovingly from the doorway. "Just look at me," Florence gasped. "I must be the most beautiful fairy in the world. You don't think I've overdone the spell a bit, do you, Wilfred?"
"A bit,"
growled Wilfred.
"That's putting it mildly. It's bound to lead to trouble if you ask me."
But Florence just ignored him. "I feel pretty, oh so pretty," she sang, twirling round and round in a cornflower blue dress she hadn't been able to fit into since she was 18. "Humph," said Wilfred. "Personally, I preferred you the way you were." But Florence just told him not to be such a spoilsport. During her birthday tea, Florence kept rushing off to the mirror to admire herself. She hardly ate any of the pink cake Wilfred had baked for her. "It's delicious, Wilfred, dear, but I don't want to spoil my new slim figure," she said, tossing her black curls. "Humph," said Wilfred again. But there was one thing Florence had overlooked in her desire to be young and beautiful, and that was that all the goblins and elves and gnomes for miles around would fall in love with her. It wasn't long before they were queuing at her door. In just 1 week, she received 10 boxes of chocolates, 9 bunches of flowers, 8 gold rings, and 7 offers of marriage. Soon, Florence spent all her time being wooed by doting admirers and having sweet nothings whispered in her ear.
"I might as well be a bit of furniture for the amount of interest she's showing in me," Wilfred thought sulkily as he sat alone by the fire. The weeks went by, and after a while, Florence grew tired of being chased by all the gnomes, goblins, and elves. She couldn't even go shopping without would-be husbands pursuing her, and the sweet nothings were getting extremely boring. Then one night, she had a horrible dream about being married to a particularly ugly elf, and when she woke up, it suddenly struck her that Wilfred was better company than all her admirers put together. The next morning, Florence and Wilfred were enjoying a quiet breakfast together when all of a sudden a fat gnome started to recite love poems through the window. If that wasn't bad enough, a bald goblin with a box of chocolates started to bang on the door, and a lanky elf tried to climb down the chimney with a bunch of red roses. "Oh, Wilfred, we can't even have breakfast in peace anymore," cried Florence sadly. "My nerves won't stand it. Please send him away before I go mad." Wilfred rose to his full height. The marmalade hairs on his back stood on end and his whiskers bristled.
"My mistress won't be receiving visitors today or tomorrow or ever again," Wilfred announced in his most important voice. "So may I bid you gentlemen good day?" Wilfred could look quite fierce when he wanted to. He certainly did then, and Florence's suitors hurried off. "I have to admit that being young and beautiful has a few disadvantages," said Florence with a sigh. "Would you mind helping me change back into my old self, Wilfred dear?"
"It would be a pleasure," said Wilfred. Together they prepared the magic potion. This time it tasted even more revolting. Then Florence's curly black hair turned straight and white. Her wrinkles returned. Her body became lumpy and cuddly again. Her suitors were all very puzzled. Whatever had happened to the young, beautiful fairy? "She's gone away for good," Wilfred told them firmly. That evening, Florence and Wilfred sat cozily by the fire playing Snap. Florence wore her birthday slippers and munched a cream donut because she no longer had to worry about her figure. Wilfred was purring. "I've just decided, Wilfred dear, that I really rather like being old and ugly," said Florence. "It's so much more restful." "And the company's better," said Wilfred dryly. "Snap,